team. She has presented herself at various events, such as she has presented into Red Hat Q Camp in Bangalore, the summit sites at APAC level, and she has also presented herself at lunch and learn sessions. Outside Red Hat, she has also presented at she has also spoke for the lightning talk at the WTT Australia conference. And now I'll hand over to Apurva to tell us more about her and to start the session.
Sure thing. Thank you, Prachi. Thank you, TWT team. Just sharing my screen. I hope you can see it.
Yes, we can see.
Yeah, thank you. Hello all. Good morning. Let's begin the collaboration journey. In today's session, I would be talking about these few topics. So let's start with it. So what is working in silos? We all know that it's a habit of working on your own, where you're not communicating well with others, or maybe you're not working with different teams. So let's see in the beginning one such example that what happens if you're working in silos and not collaborating, and what are its results. I hope you can listen the video.
OMG, is that a mouse? WT?
No, stay calm, everyone.
Get off. You know me.
So someone just explain me, if you were able to listen to this video, why was this mess? Can such issues be fixed? If someone can unmute or maybe just add it to chat, what was this video all about? The Tom and Jerry was just an example because it can also happen in your day-to-day life. So I just used this video. If someone wants to share something about it, please add to chat. Anyone?
To me, it looked like things were unplanned. They were not. There was no team effort, is what it seemed.
That's correct. Any other input?
Yeah, actually, I felt like they were not in sync. Maybe they were not prepared or organized, so that they didn't know. Okay, after one after another, they didn't know their actions, so they were totally out of sync. Is what I could feel.
Yeah, that's really correct. And in this scenario, so if someone has not seen this picture, the event manager just tries to do everything on her own, and her teammates, instead of helping her, since she was not taking some inputs from her teammates, so they just started blaming her. And initially they tried to bring Tom for the same reason, to have this mess. So in this case, instead of having a blame game, we have to first find the root cause, try to fix it. Now in this case, already the mess was done. So here maybe in previously she could have just went through and see, what could be the issue. She could have analyzed it, and she could have also asked her team members to help her instead of just blaming. And that's why we shouldn't be working everything alone. We should start doing it. Maybe we should start collaborating. That's why, and this quote is really helpful. And for the same thing, I wanted to start with this video where we can go through what is collaboration and what about. So if someone else wants to again try to maybe add to chat that what from your point of view is collaboration, not just from our office point of view, but even with our day-to-day examples, what do you think? What is all about collaboration, or how it should be done? Anyone? Okay, maybe. So if we are seeing in the previous video, the mess was all created. So just to see from the collaboration side, if the event manager in the video part, as in at the end of this movie, the event manager collaborates with our lovely Tom and Jerry. So instead of having them fight against each other, she uses them, she tries to have the friendship between them, and finally the wedding was a successful event without any issues. That's how a collaboration works, and that's how you should work with different teams to get their opinions, to understand what their opinions are, ideas are, and maybe working on those ideas you can make something a better, whether it is about your product or even issues like this wedding. And with the same, since we have seen what is collaboration, so the benefits are definitely, there could be many more. I've tried to add a few here, which goes with, since we are collaborating with different teams. Now I'm going with the our company scenario, where the end goal is about problem solving and providing a better user experience. And to do that, we also need to know and get clear customer requirements. And when we collaborate, we understand what are the different customer requirements. We get different ideas because there are diverse teams. So that's a very unique thing, that you would be getting different ideas, opinions. And apart from the problem solving for a company, it also helps to learn and improve your own skills. You get to learn how other teams are working, maybe how you can implement it in your own day-to-day work, as well as it helps you in your career progression as well. So it's not just only for your feature, but also for your career benefits. But yeah, before we start collaborating, there are few things which we should remember. Since we have discussed there would be diverse team, so you have to respect the diverse opinions, you have to trust each other. And when you're collaborating, there should be a common goal. If there is no common goal, it won't make any sense to just start collaborating. And by doing this as well, you have to recognize whosoever is helping you, because at the end of the day, they are investing their time helping you. So do recognize their efforts. It should be a give and take situation. And same is for sharing and receiving feedback. It should be a constructive feedback. It helps if you're open to share a feedback about someone, you should be also open to receive any feedback about you. And be flexible, be ready to adapt to different situations as they occur. And this were few key things that I thought maybe we should be aware once before we start collaborating. Now, since I have talked about the last point as reducing conflicts, which is a very key thing, and differences may cause conflicts because again, there are different teams, there may be different opinions. But if maybe even before preventing, if there are already a conflicts, and let's see what happens.
No. That rate is much too low from what we'd expect from this collision. Do you understand we're talking about dark matter colliding in outer space?
Yeah, of course I understand. And who are you to tell me about outer space?
Well, I'm the astrophysicist. Astro means space.
Astro means star.
So those who have seen Big Bang Theory, and we know that Sheldon, the character, is always being shown as a bossy thing. He is never flexible, even if he's working with his teammates, his friends, even it is for choosing a lunch option or even to go to a movie, or maybe even when it comes to his office work. So in this case, when he's not flexible to listen to other opinion, that impacts the other workers who might be suggesting something. They might not be even interested to share if they have very better idea or even a feedback. So what do you think, how this situation could have been resolved? Or in this case, I mean, in Big Bang Theory, definitely Sheldon is a person where even if you try, it is very less possible that you could help him or maybe share any suggestion. But in real life scenario, we definitely have to solve this conflicts. And to prevent it, this is what I thought to share. So it is very important to either prevent conflicts at first place or resolve them respectfully. So by doing this, if you want to prevent it in initial stage, we should be aware maybe what could be the conflicts. So identify them initially so that you are aware and you are ready if there are any conflicts. At the end of the meeting or anywhere, if you are having a decision, Ask unbiased, open-ended questions. It shouldn't just be yes or no. You should be open to listen if they have any different suggestions, which also focuses on active listening. And you have to trust everyone equally, because and it with as well as with respect and dignity. You have to keep your designation aside. Maybe if I'm collaborating with someone senior to me, or maybe even junior to me, that junior or senior shouldn't impact your collaboration. If someone has a better idea than you, focus on that. Don't focus on what is the designation of the person who is sharing that idea. And you have to also avoid judgmental behavior. Otherwise, you would keep on judging someone even by their if they ask any silly question, or maybe accent or anything. We have a tendency as a human being, we try to judge someone very quickly. But when you are collaborating with different folks, this is the first thing which we should avoid. And do not have the blame game. Now this is as a team, so it should be done as a team. If something is good, the team should be thankful for it. And if something is wrong, don't blame any individual. Your team should be responsible for that. This is what I thought for preventing conflicts, which could few points that we should start initially. And in the previous video, since we saw about Sheldon and the other co-worker, in such cases, if the person is not listening, maybe we can also include some other team members, just to let the person understand that what even other folks are thinking about. And we don't have to go on a fight. It should be resolved respectfully. And with that, this was all about benefits, key things. And everyone says, know your customer. But even before knowing our customer, it is very important to know who our internal stakeholders are, because those are the one with whom we would understand who are our customers, how they use the feature, or what are the requirements. I've tried to list a few of our internal stakeholders. Again, depending on team to team, or depending on some products, it might differ. But these are the basic ones where the product owner or the managers let us know all about the release plan, what are they planning about it, what are the features, the quality engineers, how they test or how they plan to test the feature, what are their plans, developers coming up with all the suggestions about that feature, in which release, or in whether it's a minor release, major release, when that feature would be released, or when that feature would be published. Documentation team, of course, because you need to let your customer know about that feature, whether it could be a man page, a product docs, or anything. A team should be aware. If the documentation team is not aware, even in the initial planning phase, it becomes very difficult to writers to later on cope up with all the suggestions and changes which the product team are working on. UX team, and even with the customer facing teams, from customer facing team, it could be support engineers, technical account managers, solution architects, sales teams, who have a day in day out with the customers to even go with what was their issues, or manage their accounts, or even explain them why they should use these features. The customer support facing teams, we understand the later part. With developers, you understand how it was supposed to be used. But so it should be a collaboration with all. It shouldn't mean that you should be just focusing on devs or QEs, and you should only just focus on customer facing teams. It should be a combination of everyone, so that you can start it from an initial phase to when the feature is published. It's the cycle, and it should be completed. These are the few benefits which you might understand when you start collaborating with the stakeholders, especially when you start collaborating with the customer facing team, since they are working with those cases. They already know what are their common issues. You get to know if there are any duplicated customer cases related to those issues. With this, you also get to know different use cases, how a customer is using that feature. If they're trying some different approaches, that's how maybe even a product owners who have an interactions with customer, they can also share this. And definitely the troubleshooting examples, because if there is any issue, and if the customer support team is working with the product team to find out how to resolve this issue, it you get a very good collection of troubleshooting examples, which helps the customer. And if it is documented properly, it can also reduce those repeated customer cases in future. Any doubt or any question in between, or it's going good and I can continue then? I guess
Apurva,
not.
Apurva, I don't see
Sorry.
any questions in the chat. If there are any questions, I'll let you know.
Sure thing. Thank you. So for the questions which we can ask our internal stakeholders, so if you have observed any kid, you know that how many questions they continue. They ask it unless and until you provide them a very good answer which is satisfying them with their doubts. Whether it is a 5-year kid, a 2-year kid, and their questions are not just based on their age. My own nephew had a very interesting question about the water tap, and his question was from where the water is coming. These are very keen questions. They are trying to know and learn from this day-to-day experiences. And if we are providing them the right answer, it helps them to learn and understand more about it. It's the same approach which we should be following in our company, and how to collect and get more information about these features. So these are few of the questions which I tried to list down here, which you can discuss and ask to your internal stakeholders, focusing on what is the use of this feature. Initially, when a feature is created or published, we should be aware that why it was created, how it would be beneficial to our customer. Once we know that, then later part should be if there are any prerequisites. If there are, it should be documented, because if we are not mentioning it correctly and if it impacts the customer's environment, there would be issues. And even if after prerequisites there is a case, there could be issues. So we should be aware, because the testing team might tell us these are few known issues, and we could also document the known issues. And if in the previous release, if there were any known issues, we can say it as a bug fix. Suppose this, if now we know that which type of feature it is, we should also be aware about what type of feature are we providing them. Based on the severity, based on what the customer is, or based on the subscription, it goes with what type of support the company is going to provide the customer. And that information should be documented somewhere, so that if a customer is facing any issue, they can also refer to the support agreement which the company and the customer have already done. And post that, we should also be understanding the different customer approaches to use these features. For example, if we are configuring our own mobile, we have a manual, but even if we sometimes tend to do it the way we want to, and there could be different types of customers configuring their own mobile in different ways. And if we are aware about such scenarios, it helps us to know about, there could be these issues, or maybe we can come up with something, what are the best approaches to use, so that even if someone who knows that we have a manual provided, they can check the manual and they can know about that these are the best approaches, and maybe let's go with it instead of trying something on our own. Because when we go with a customer environment, if something goes wrong, the machine or server, whatever they are using that feature on, it might impact their whole environment. So that should be clearly mentioned. And the last part is how we are collecting feedback from the customer. Because when we are providing something to our customers, we should be also prepared that in which scenario and when we are ready to accept any feedback from customer, whether it is during when we are working on it, because there are some features there are where you can share some features with customers in the initial stage where they can test it and let us know what their feedback is, or even after when the feature is fully supported. In that case, you can let the customer know that this is a documentation. Maybe you can, depending on how the company is working with the feedback mechanism, you can let them know that this is the approach which you can use to let us know if you have any feedback for this feature. So this were few questions that we could ask. There could be again different types based on what that feature is all about. Don't forget to ask these questions if you are in doubt. If you think that even these type of questions are not answering your queries, don't assume anything. You should keep on asking it until your doubts are clear, because that's how it helps. If someone is mentioning it to a customer, if your doubts are not clear, maybe some information which is not to be shared can also be shared with the customer. So for that, you should be aware about that information, and you can get it by asking these questions. And to go with this, since we have seen a few examples, or maybe since starting from the video, from the Tom and Jerry to the big bangs, we went through why collaboration was required, what are the key things that we should be remembering, who are our stakeholders, followed by what type of questions. So now this was something, a real life scenario, where we can see how collaboration helps us. the potluck dinner, which everyone loves, whether it is in the office or even at our home. And this where everyone could present the different cuisine, the unique one, which they're good in. And at the end, it completes. And I heard something. Was there any question?
No, Apurva, I don't think so. You can continue.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, with the potluck dinner, since everyone is presenting their unique cuisine, it helps to complete and have a balanced meal, which would not be possible if someone of them is just trying to do it all alone. If done together, it focuses the collaboration, focuses on individual strengths to achieve a diverse outcome. Now, definitely the definition which I'm sharing with the potluck, maybe we might not even think it from the collaboration side because we are all interested in the food. But if you see the end result, everyone tries to bring their own special dish and we get to eat all different type of meals. But if I'm doing everything alone, or maybe if I am just having my own meal, it would be just a particular cuisine which I am aware about. That's I thought about some real life scenario for the collaboration. In office, definitely everyone would be working with their stakeholders and they would be using this approach. So this was a simple example for collaboration. And until the previous slide, the provided information was generic to anyone. So anyone working, whether it's a developer, it's a QV, it's someone from support, or even a writer, they can use that type of workflow. It was nothing specific to any of the team. But from this slide, I thought maybe I can share how this approach helped me as a writer to improve my product documentation for the customer success. So I have used this approach when I had some queries to resolve or maybe improve my own user stories. I was working closely with product owners and even with the support engineers to understand what are the customer cases, if something is missing. That helped me to gain information and improve my documentation. And I'm still doing it. It is a continuous project which I follow because it also helps me even as an individual to learn more about that feature, not only to improve the product docs as a customer end or maybe as a company goal, but even as an individual, I learn something more about that feature. So for this particular the product documentation, or even with the, let's just focus, let's just say information which is provided to customer, and in that we have different content types. It could be the product docs, it could be technical blogs, some articles, some knowledge center service solutions. Different type of companies might have different content types based on who their customers are or how they want to share the information. But yeah, these are few of them where we try to provide the information to answer our customer queries. And we definitely need to improve and use the right content type whenever we want to share any particular information with our customers. And to improve the same, to improve the product documentation for better user experience, how we can do it, it's again the common thing which we have seen in the previous slides. The customer requirements are very important. Whether you are collaborating with, whether you are a writer, you are a developer, or anyone, you should be aware about the customer requirements and issues. Try to find and add what is missing information when you try to collaborate, and when you know what are the issues. If you find something is missing which can help customers to fix their issues, try to find it and add it to improve the provided documentation. Add best practices for the feature. In the previous point where I was talking about how we configure our mobiles, but considering the mobile and considering the customer environment, if we know a few are the best practices, are the recommended approaches to use this feature, highlight it so that customers are aware these are what maybe a company is recommending. So other than it, maybe the other approaches could also cause issues. So it's better to suggest what are the best practices. And also this focuses on reducing customer cases by updating the documentation. It helps to reduce the duplication of cases where something can be resolved by providing the right information using the different content types. And definitely these points were important, and again, to share your ideas or suggestions. We have also seen that I was saying ask questions. But if you have any idea, because now you're writing something for the customer, you know how a customer might read it and what should be updated it. So share it. If maybe a product owner is letting you know about a feature or maybe sharing something, then this is how it should be shared with the customer. You are the one to take the decision because you know how documentation works. So let them know that maybe this is the best approach which we should be adding. If you find something is missing, don't just think that they are developers, maybe they might have already thought about this issue. Don't assume. If you have tested something and if you find any issue, or maybe if you have a better idea to improve it, go ahead and share it with your team. And for the last point, which it was all about reducing the duplicated customer cases, because it is possible that for using this feature, for example, in the prerequisites, we know if it is not followed, it might cause certain issues which a customer might face. And if we are already aware that there is some troubleshooting examples written somewhere, we can add those links, we can add it as a note. If anything, for example, to install something on our laptop, we get the recommendations, and maybe when we get the manual that this is what how much storage space you should need. So these are few things you should keep on adding and improving, or maybe based on, if you know what are the common issues, you can go through your doc, you can see if there is any more information you can add to your user stories, your documentation, which can improve it. And based on finding the first point is all about finding the common issues. Once you know, by discussing it with the customer support team, you can prioritize them. They can let you know that maybe these are the top 10 issues. If they are not fixed, their system is not going to work. Find that related information in your documentation, see what is missing, if something can be improved. If you can add maybe some admonitions which can help a customer whenever they are reading it, that maybe these are the key things that I should be following, otherwise there might be some issues. And with the same, if you know the troubleshooting related information, the customer support team, if they already have it, maybe review it, see how you can add it either to your doc, or maybe review the existing troubleshooting articles or solutions, so that if something is missing again in that, or how if any steps are complex, it is very possible maybe your stakeholders might let you know the complex steps. You have to break it down. You have to break it down the way a customer might read it and understand, because at the end you are trying to resolve their issues and not maybe confuse them by adding some big, or maybe you can say confusing information that can instead of fixing it, you are more confusing. So you should also review and collect such troubleshooting examples and try to add it to your documentation wherever it is possible. And now this goes, now since we have seen from the first slide until now, it was all about how to do it, how not to do it. But just don't start it at the initial stage and maybe later forget. You have to do it as a periodic check. So let's say if I am following this approach, I'm working with the customer team, I am collecting some common issues and I know that I can improve it. Have a periodic check, maybe after a quarter, just review if you have any statistics about if it reduced some customer cases, if some good feedback is coming from different teams. And if something is still missing, maybe you can improve it. So you need that periodic check. Just don't assume maybe if I am improving something, that is definitely going to resolve those issues. There could be some different ways as well. So you have to check it unless and until you don't have a quarterly review or monthly review based on the case volume, you will never know which is the best approach to use. So don't forget to have this periodic check, because it is really, really very important. And yeah, since I was having a bit of theoretical points or maybe some slides which were heavy with what should be all the questions, key things, at the end maybe we tend to forget what we discussed. So I thought of summarizing everything under this helpful tips, where we go with, if I know that I have this issue, I want to collaborate maybe with the product owners along with the customer support team, and I want to schedule a meeting for that. But the agenda should be clear. What is my goal, what I'm trying to solve it, and what's in it for them. If they're investing their time, they should also know how beneficial it is for them. So have it as a clear agenda, let them know on which part of or which stakeholders you're looking for. So whosoever is going through the calendar invite or even through the email, they're aware that, okay, this is what the end goal would be. And at the end of the meeting, we might find a particular use case, or maybe we might have to go with a number of meetings, but at least the reader is aware that what they should expect from that meeting. And definitely before you schedule such meetings, have your research, because if you don't know anything about that features, your questions would be very basic. But if you know about more about that feature, or you try to learn about it by reading the existing information, it helps you to deep dive into that feature. Maybe even you can reach out to that stage where you might be starting filing bugs. It helps different teams as well, that the one who is scheduling the meeting is ready with their homework, as we used to do it in a school. Before learning the next step, our homework should be ready. It's the same thing. So do your research, and then try to ask more about it. And as we have seen in the last slides, that do not assume and ask questions when in doubt. The assumption thing is very risky. Now, since you would be working with some issues to help customer, if you assume something, even a one word information might cause a major issue in the customer environment. This is a few team from our end. And recognizing this, recognizing is important. If I am working with them, maybe say thank you, say share reward points based on how your team is working with, how you can share and say thank you. Maybe, or if there is, even if you don't have those reward points or thank you notes, just in a meeting at the end have a kudos section where you can take their names and say, thanks to this person or thanks to this team, they helped me with XYZ, and let your team also know about it, because this is really important. Recognition should be done. Even you expect, if you are helping someone, that you should be recognized. It is the same approach that you should be using when you're working with some different teams. And followed by that, when I'm going to a next meeting, or maybe in the existing one, at the end of the meeting, we should be discussing about the action items, so that whenever we are meeting for the next time, the people or the stakeholders are aware, okay, for the next meeting, I should be bringing this type of information, or maybe I need to research. So this is the point which you should be discussing at the end of the meeting. And whenever you share some meeting minutes about your, maybe let's say half an hour meeting or 1 hour meeting, you should be, it should be very crisp and clear that what you discuss, don't share the essay, just share the key points what was discussed. Maybe, and also you need to share what are the AIs, so that if someone has not attended the meeting, they can check the key points, they can check the AIs. If they know about it, they can check it, because sometimes it is possible that we cannot go through the whole recording depending on how workload is. So sometimes this meeting minutes are very helpful, where you share the key discussions and even the AIs, and have a periodic check for the next meeting. If, for example, at the end of the meeting, either you can ask that what is the cadence of this meeting, or you can just decide and put it, for example, monthly. And if there is no agenda for that particular meeting, you can maybe cancel it. But if you have a tendency to forget that you need to schedule a meeting, the monthly or bi-weekly helps, because the calendar would have everything. And if not, have maybe in the, send an email to your stakeholders, what is the next date that everyone is available. Again, depending on the workload, depending on the time zone, we should be very flexible. And it's not just the one who is scheduling, but even the other stakeholders, everyone should be flexible. It shouldn't happen that someone from US have to join very late, or same applies to the India, that they have to join very early or maybe very late. It should be balanced of both the worlds. It helps. It also shows that you are respecting their work life balance, and in that case you can also expect the same. Because if I am scheduling a meeting at a normal time, I'm letting them know that I don't want maybe someone to invest their time post their dinner to have this discussion, and you can expect the same. So this is how it should be, a give and take in every meeting. And this were the few tips that I thought should be shared. And do not initiate these meetings only for the sake of doing it. It happens that maybe someone starts it and later on we forget about that, we need to continue it. So it should be done on regularly to evaluate the success. Maybe after a quarter you think this approach is not working. It is a very great step to start at the initial stage, that let's change the approach. If you change it maybe after some 10-20 meetings when everyone had invested their time, maybe it might create a very different confusion and a different environment, those who are working with you. So it's better to re-evaluate everything what you do, have it as a periodic check. And as Henry Ford mentioned, that coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, but working together is success. So that is the key mantra which we should be following, whether it's even for the customer success and even with our day-to-day thing. Whenever we are collaborating, whenever we are starting any project, it should be completed, it should went through all those checks, and I guess that would be the best thing to be successful. And that's all I had in my today's presentation. I hope it was helpful. I hope it might help you with your stakeholders and how you can collaborate with them. So if you have any questions, any suggestions, maybe how I or maybe how you use the collaboration with your stakeholders and that was successful, even you can share it with the team so that we can get to learn more about it. Yeah, anything?
Do we have any questions for Apurva or anything to share basis her? Yes, Chandrika.
Hi, Apurva. Thank you for a wonderful session. Very helpful. So I wanted to ask you a question. So the access of the customer team, because we generally mostly interact with the product managers, the testing people, developers. So our world is a kind of different from the customer facing team. So how do you get access to those people, and do they really have time to discuss all these things with you? Because they generally come up with a problem and they at once say, "Oh, we have a KCS article for this, and we have already written this," and so I've seen the kind of what do we call? They don't have time at all for all this. So I just want to learn from you. How did you get that their time, and how did you get them to your meeting and get inputs from them, and how did that all happen?
Yep. Yeah, with the first thing, for your first question, how do you know maybe which team you should be asking this? Even the product managers or product owners would be the best one to know about the different stakeholders which with whom the product owners generally have meetings with. There could be, you might be aware about some of the support teams or some of your developers, but not with all. Either it could be your product owners, your program managers, or even your manager who can help you know about these different stakeholders. If you're new to a company, these are the best person who can help you. And for the supporting, as you were saying, definitely they are busy. It becomes difficult to have a continuous meeting. It's not necessary that maybe I'm scheduling a meeting on a particular day. It is not possible every time that that meeting would be successful. You have to reschedule it, because if there are escalations going on, if there is a major critical issue where they have to be, definitely that's their priority. So you have to be flexible. You have to keep on asking them that, do you have any suggestions, and maybe try to reach their managers, because managers would then discuss it with their internal teams, collect that information and get back to you for initial meetings, so that we are not wasting anyone's time, and maybe to discuss some critical points. And that case the manager can ask their support engineers to join the call, because it should also helpful for them. And as you were saying, they are really very busy and we cannot expect that each and every engineer would join that call. So that was the similar approach I used, but it takes some time. You have to be there should be a patience, lot of patience.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Apurva? Well, Apurva, I do have a question for you. Yeah. So at the start of the session, you mentioned that you joined Red Hat as an intern, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in my company, we have recently hired few interns, and at the start of your slide, one of your slide deck mentioned about working in silos. So what do you suggest when we have new people joining in the team who are new to the writing world, let's say, or any of the new to the IT domain? So what do you think how should we help them in the interaction part of internal stakeholders or with the support team, because everything will be new for them. So what do you think should be the baby steps that you took as an intern that helped you to lead a team today?
So during my internship, even I was the only one intern at that time is in my writing team. So initially I used to feel that maybe I'm not understanding how other teams are working. So I started attending some sessions. For example, if other teams are having some trainings that your manager or maybe the manager would play a very key role, they would let you know that there are this XYZ training happening in the company, even for the newcomers. Start joining those trainings. You get to know how who are the other associates, maybe even since you asked about the internship, when I was doing my engineering, I was not aware about the technical writing field at that time during 2015, because in the college environment it was all about developers, QEs, only the two things which were very highlighted. But after joining my company, I came to know about different roles. I used to be part of some internal committees, maybe whether it's for sports, whether it is for the annual event. It helps you to interact with the different associates from different teams. But yeah, you have to ask questions, because when I used to go to such meetings and post the meeting, I used to interact that how your team works, what is the goal, or maybe what are the products you're working on. Even with my mentors, I used to ask them about some tips, that who are the persons that I should be having this discussion. Initially you might feel that you are bombarded with so much of information, but that's okay, you have to learn. So for your interns, maybe you can figure out who are the stakeholders for them, or maybe you can have such small trainings where they can interact with different team members. Let them know about something beyond your own team. Otherwise the interns might just be aware about, okay, this is my writing team, this is my manager, this is my mentor, and that's all their world is. So maybe you have to cut it down and introduce some other team members, have some quick sessions just to introduce about some different products. It helps the newcomers to know about it. And even for the learning, if you think that there is some good session going on, or some lunch and learns, let your interns know about it, let them go, or maybe change some schedules for them, because we have our plans and maybe company is having some different sessions. In such case, try to be flexible with your own onboarding as well, so that even they might feel that it's not just only about your team, but you're letting them grow as an individual, because maybe they might in future want to change some team or change their role. So this helped me individually. But yeah, sometimes I used to ask so many questions, it might, I mean, the one who I used to ask, they might feel that how many questions I'm asking. But it is the approach that everyone should follow. If someone is asking you, just try to answer. And if you don't know the answer, maybe just let them know the different point of contact, because they are in the learning phase. And if you just disappoint them by sharing some brief answer, it is not going to help them as an individual. And since we also went through that journey, I guess we, as in, since I was an intern, so if any intern joins, I follow the same approach, because I had expected the same when I joined it, because it helps me to maybe help my interns. So yeah, I help. It was helpful, Prerna.
Yep. Thank you, Apurva. That was helpful. Okay, so do we have any other questions or any inputs for Apurva?
Yeah, even a suggestion or something else that you might have used to work with your stakeholders that was successful, maybe it can be helpful to all of us here. If someone wants to share their story, if we have time.
Okay, so Puneet here. So just one point, I mean, of course, a lot of information shared by Apurva, and during her journey, I mean, it's great to see how much she has implemented within the organization. And this stakeholder part is certainly very important. Just one thing I want to add, which I have used in my career. Yes, SMEs with whom we work in project, of course, there is a straightforward path and there are thorns and issues. So like Apurva shared, so everyone has their own working style. At least for those stakeholders with whom we are not working directly on projects, okay? So it's like support or any implementation team who are part of product implementation on customer side, but directly in project you don't work with, but they have a lot of insight about how customers use your documentation. So especially with these two, during my career, I implemented two things. With support, our support team gets the calls and the emails, the ticketing system they have, right? So for my product, I used to sync up with their managers or whomsoever is the connecting person handling my specific product or feature, and used to ask them that can they share the questions they receive over a period of 1 month. So monthly report, if they can share, I used to tell them you can filter it out, just share when you have questions related to my feature. And I would also like to know how did you resolve it? Did you use the documentation content or did you provide your own KB articles? So if that kind of coordination happens, it helped me a lot because when they used our link, it made us feel that, okay, we are on the right track. And wherever they could not find our link, it gave us an insight that, oh, we are missing on this part, so we should add it. That is for support. And for implementation teams and all, I use one thing. Generally, implementation teams or whatever team you call it in your organization, basically teams who are directly responsible for a particular customer, they generally have a weekly or a fortnightly or a monthly meeting. Just a meeting. It's like, they generally keep on having. So I pushed myself and my writers also to be part of those meetings. Just go sit there, do nothing else. Go sit there, listen to them, and in between you get familiar with the customers. They also know your name. So in between some fine day, throw a question. Okay, have you used our documentation? Do you have any suggestions? So those two methods I have used. And yes, meeting with customers at times was very fiery because they were not happy with the documentation. So then in a very polite way, you say, sorry for that, but we are trying to improve. And that's why I'm sitting here. That helps. Thank you.
That's true. The reason you mentioned about going to those meetings, it is really helpful. I tried the same approach because sometimes you might not know about the whole feature from the technical side, but when you start attending it, you also understand how that feature or how that component is all about. You start doing your research, and the questions are definitely, because the way you mentioned, I asked some initial questions such as what is the role of the documentation when you have any customer case. Do you refer to it? Do you share it? This is a very initial stage. After maybe your issue is resolved, do you see that if something could have been improved in the doc? If it is there, how do you let the team know? And then there is a role of escalation, how product docs can be used, or what is the role of product docs during the escalation. Escalation is a part where sometimes we cannot have the written method every time, based on how the customer is at that time, how much the anger is. It might differ based on situations, but you at least you can get to know how the teams are using it. And there are also some meetings where the customer support teams have a meeting with the developers and product owners to discuss, okay, this were few issues that customer reported. We shared a solution, but maybe we can fix our own feature, fix our own system, something. And then the developers are working on it, the QE testers. It's a very good meeting where different teams are coming together. Try to, ask the managers that how you can be part of such meetings. So just don't be silo that you are someone from product docs that you don't need to be aware of it. But no, this is not, this is very wrong. You should be aware about this thing. If someone is saying, maybe ask your manager or directly you can, based on how you have the approach, convey that how the documentation team is important. And even you should be involving them during the release plan. Because if you involve not only the developers but also customer facing team, you get to know about both the sides. Because sometimes developer would just add something about it but might not be the best one to decide how customers are using it. So you need to have a balance between all the teams. That was
Very
helpful
true.
for me.
Very true. And this reminds me about one point probably you mentioned in the initial slide, be visible. Okay, so yeah, so be visible. And I will just give you one small example of Apurva here. So I used to lead a documentation team which had around some good number of team members. So I told them to do the same, which I told right now. Okay. Some of them were confident enough. They used to attend the meetings and all. Some of them were, whatever reason, they did not use to attend the meeting. From my side also, it was not mandatory because it was off working hours. But yeah, Now what happened? So say 1 or 2 writers who used to attend just their meetings, remember, not other meetings, their meetings. They became the face of documentation team with product managers, with development, not developers, development managers. So although they were working only on their respective features, even if those product managers, because product managers are for the whole product, not for just one feature. Even if they had one question, they will directly ping them, call them that, hey, for this thing, can you see what can be done for documentation? Hey, we have a suggestion for this. Are you free for meeting? Then that person will tell that, okay, I will connect you to the concerned writer. So if you show face, you will be recognized, you will be visible. It's all your benefit only. And the problem that Apurva was telling, and which happens with most of the writers, you always say that, okay, we are not visible, people don't give value. Show them your face and you see how much value you will get.
That's true. And be the middleman, as you're saying. In some
Right.
cases, for me, I was just sharing, or I was there just to share their concerns from one manager to some other managers from my team, because they were aware that I was collaborating with support team. So they might not be aware of about the other team members. That's how, as you were saying, be the face of your team. They would definitely reach you in any form, and then you don't have to do this efforts again because it's already been set. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all.
Great session, Apurva. Thank you.
I'll just stop sharing. Thank you to all of you to give me this platform to share my tips, and even thank you, Puneet, you shared about your approach. Thank you.
Apurva, on
Welcome.
behalf of the sorry, Puneet, you were saying something?
No, I was
Yeah.
just saying welcome. That's it. Right.
Okay. So, Apurva, on behalf of the team TWT team Pune, I would like to thank you for all the enlightening insights on collaborating with different teams. Knowing the correct ways of communication is really important in our field, and you have highlighted all the points very correctly. And of course, a big thank you for our audience for your active participation. Your collective contributions have made this event a success. And TWT will definitely be back with more such events. So stay tuned with us.
Thank you. Thank you all.